Hello, darling. So today's Ed puzzle is on tips, taxes, and totals. So make sure you're an expert at the topic above and realize I'm also going to ask you to combine it with percents, to be able to add decimals and multiply some things. So make sure you're ready for all of those things. All Ed puzzle answers are final and cannot be changed, so you can't go back to a question and you can't email me later with different answers. So make sure that you realize you cannot use notes, you cannot use a calculator, you cannot use other people or other websites, including our math songs. So when you agree with our academic integrity and principled action statement, that's what you're saying. You do need a blank sheet of scratch paper and something to write with. I'm going to be asking you to look for patterns in this one, so you need to write down your answers so that you can see those patterns. All right, so we're going to start with tipping 10%. So if your bill is $23, find the tip amount that's 10%. When your bill is $13.42 and you're going to tip 10%, how much do you tip? When your amount is $47 and you're going to tip 10%, how much do you tip? Now, I want you to look at the pattern. Here were the three questions that you had, and hopefully you wrote down those answers. And I want you to tell me the shortcut to finding a 10% tip. All right. Once you have the shortcut to find a 10% tip of something, and you have that 10% tip, how would you go about finding a 20% tip? So think about the relationship between 10 and 20. Now, once you find a 10% tip, how would you find a 5% tip? Think about the relationship between the number 10 and 5. Now, here it is, kicking it up a notch, of course. Once you find a 10% tip, and you know how to get a 5% tip, what would you do to get a 15% tip? All right. So you have a bill that is $58, and you're going to tip 20% of that $58. So write down how much the tip amount is, 20% of $58. Then total your amount of the $58 bill and the tip, and choose the right answer. Next, you have a bill that's $72. Tax is 8.25%, so find the amount of the tax. And what is the amount of the bill plus the tax? Now, using that number, we're going to tip. So we're using this answer right here, find a 25% tip, and add it all together on how much money you need to leave at the table. All right. Next, we have a sale. You can take 50% off, or you can take 20% off and then take another additional 30% off. And this is based on a real story. I saw this at JCPenney's one time, and I'm like, oh man, they're testing our math skills here. So try doing this with $100, take 50% off of it, and then start again with $100, take 20% off, and then from that answer, take 30% off. And then you can try it again with something smaller like $12 and come up with some conclusions. Which is the better deal? And so there's two different deals. There's 50% off, or there's 20, then 30%. Oops. So that's what you're trying to figure out right there. Which one of those is the better deal? The 50% off or the 20% then 30%? So take your time and think about that. And why is it a better deal?